Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar. My First Year is the onboarding program that your future leaders deserve, and it's from Interactive Services. And I can see that we still have a few people joining the session, but we're going to get started, and hopefully any late joiners will be able to catch up as we go along. So first of all, thank you. I know your time is precious. We really appreciate you joining us today. This is a little bit of a sneak preview of an offering that's coming from Interactive Services very, very soon. We have 25 years of designing onboarding training among all the other training offerings that we have built for our clients, and we've decided recently to pull that together and solidify it into an approach that we can take out to the market. So we're very excited to be here today talking to you about this, and we hope that you'll learn something from the presentation and also hopefully get excited too about what we might be able to achieve together. I'm actually running a deck that we would run with you internally if we were at the beginning of the engagement, or if we were just trying to identify or understand if it was a good fit for the two companies to work together. So it's probably worth looking at these early slides because they'll help you to position in your mind the kind of questions that we would be asking and that will set us up for the rest of the presentation. First of all, we like to understand what you would like to achieve with onboarding. So we're here today to talk about new hires specifically. I think most people can share at least one horror story around a bad induction or new hire that they've experienced, and hopefully they can also share something that really worked for them. And one of the things we'll talk about today is it's often the small details that make the difference and create a memorable onboarding. So one of the things we would like to know from you is what is your vision for new hire onboarding and what issues are you trying to solve for? So as we go through the presentation today, maybe you could keep those questions in mind. Second piece is around the current state. So what does your onboarding program look like now, and how do you manage the manager component to the new hire program? One of the things we'll talk about today is the necessity of having managers engaged with your new hire program. Are you already doing this? If you are, is it successful? If you're not, how do you plan to do it? Another set of questions just to bear in mind. And then finally, we look at the tech environment. So as we work through My First Year today, have a think about your own technical environment. What is the infrastructure? Is it set up for you to be able to do something innovative? Would it require an overhaul? Are you already very well placed from a technical point of view? And essentially, is it delivering as you like? And again, a concept we'll come back to several times today is the fact that most large organizations already have a huge amount of technology that in theory should set themselves up for new hire success. Why do we so infrequently see that translate into genuinely cutting-edge new hire programs? Well, we'll be looking at that today to some extent. So for anyone who doesn't know who we are, My First Year is from Interactive Services. We are a training, design, and delivery company. We have been around for 24 years. We have a head office in Dublin, Ireland, but we have offices in New York, in Bentonville, Arkansas, and in San Francisco. And you can see from the green dots on the screen, primarily our clients are in the US, and we work with large Fortune 500 brands. We know that when you work with large brands, that brand is very important. So everything we do, everything we produce, will look and feel like it's come from the company we're working with rather than from Interactive Services. Your brand is important to us, just as it's important to you. One of the things I would encourage you to do if you have the chance is to look at our website and to take a look at the My First Year video. I'm not going to run it over the WebEx. It's actually on the next slide, Neil, but I do want to make sure that you're aware that you can see this video. It's 2 minutes long, and within that 2 minutes, you'll get probably this 30-minute presentation encapsulated. I hope that doesn't mean you're about to jump off the webinar, but it is an opportunity to recap afterwards on what we're doing here. So I'm going to hand over to a colleague of mine. Dan Brown is our Strategic Partnership Officer, and he's just going to talk us through what he considers to be some of the building blocks of successful onboarding.
Thanks, Matt. As Matt mentioned earlier, for almost 25 years now, we've been creating great training, great onboarding training. But what we noticed over the years is that an awful lot of the time, the initiatives don't have the impact that the organizations we were working with desired. And that was often for one of 3 or 4 reasons. Firstly, that often the analysis up front wasn't meaningful. It didn't target organization-specific issues such as retention or engagement or productivity. Often there's a feeling of the onboarding program was there because the organization felt they needed one, rather than thinking really carefully about the desired outcome of the onboarding program. And as a result, the design then didn't address specific issues. We hear again and again organizations or learners saying that it feels like you're drinking from the fire hose in the first day or for the first week. A huge amount of information gets thrown at you in your first few days, and then there's a feeling that the onboarding programs tail off. So there's no real design, or there's no clarity of roadmap, a real sense of the beginning, the middle, and satisfying endpoint in the journey. The content itself, as a result, therefore, doesn't really engage the new hires because there's no real meaningful thinking underneath it. The ease of access, again, time and time again, we find makes new hire programs fall over. We hear organizations tell us that they have big LMSs, but they're so big and unwieldy that learners don't know where to find the content, or the content laid out in a way that doesn't make it engaging, give a real kind of clarity as to where I am, why I'm taking the content, how it's going to make me successful. And then finally, the big one is leadership support. The leadership culture around the new hire program isn't as robust as it needs to be. Either leaders don't have the time to support the new hire programs properly, they're not given the tools to support the new hires properly. And again, a bit like the new hires themselves, often managers or leaders tell us that they're just not entirely sure how they fit into the onboarding program, or where the touch points need to come and how to best set the new hires up for success. So I think the key thing as we look at the rest of this presentation is really to say that we think there are 5 building blocks that all need to come together in order to make your new hire program a success. The other thing you're going to hear us talk about today, or Matt talk about a lot, is the three areas of focus that underpin the design, which is increasing engagement, improving retention, and improving productivity. I think, Matt, in a moment you're going to talk about some of the stats behind those 3 pieces, but we are talking about onboarding training, but really there's a laser-like focus in everything that we create, with a view to impacting your engagement, your retention, and your productivity.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. So some of the people on this webinar will already be very familiar with why this is so important. But for anyone who isn't, I want to be absolutely clear that this is about business impact. So while we think about new hire in terms of our personal experiences being good and bad in an emotional sense, from a company point of view, there is a dollar value to getting this right. And if you don't analyze that new hire retention and productivity data, which HR is already collecting, and then build it into your new hire program, it can be a very expensive miss. And when you get it right, you get a huge ROI. So we're talking about dollars and cents here. Rather than walking you through all the detail on this slide, suffice to say there is some very in-depth research and statistics that show quite how important this is. One I will call out is the cost of replacing an employee. If you are a company that suffers high attrition or even medium attrition, and you're losing people after 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 365 days, the cost of replacing that person is 3 times their salary. So getting new hire right is absolutely vital. On the next slide, we have a couple of stats around tracking engagement. Engagement, again, is not a nice to have. It's something that absolutely underpins the success of your organization. The attrition rate of disengaged employees is 12 times higher than highly engaged employees, and we've just seen how expensive attrition can be. Another area is around connecting managers and new hires. So 80% of employees who are dissatisfied with their direct manager were disengaged. And it's this role of the manager in the new hire process. It's so often underappreciated. It isn't given enough thought. It isn't given enough structure. We hear managers are too busy to fully engage with onboarding employees, or too much is expected of them, or they don't have the tools. But we do know that engaged managers lead to loyal employees, and employee loyalty is a really key factor in the success of the business. So whatever you have to do to engage those managers, you should do. And part of my first year is trying to make that as easy for you and as easy for those managers as is possible. And finally, the real why is around culture. So cultural fit is a vital piece of a new hire program. Again, it's not a nice to have. It might sound like the fluffy stuff, but actually you can put a dollar value on how people engage with your culture. It's really the piece that answers the question, how am I expected to behave around here as a new hire? New hires, I hesitate to say millennials more than others, but the data does to some extent support this. They want to believe in the organization they work for. They're more interested than perhaps my generation was when it entered the workforce in the mission of the organization they work for, the vision of the organization. They want to fit in. And the data supports this when it tells us that younger generations enter the workplace with a view that if it isn't right, if it isn't a good cultural fit, they will move on. They'll look for a better place to work. And that's key. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
To jump in here, hopefully nobody from Uber is on this webinar, or if you are, then hopefully we'll get a chance to talk afterwards. But, you know, there's a great example that I'm sure everybody on this webinar is aware of, is with Uber recently. You know, the idea of how do people behave around here, of having a real mindful, carefully crafted, you know, introduction to the company and the cultural messages you want your new hire to see, and to be setting the tone of how do people behave around here in order to be successful is you know, really critical.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And over the next couple of slides, we just look at why some good onboarding or supposedly good onboarding programs fail. You might have fantastic new hire content, and we see a lot of really good new hire content, but sometimes good programs can be let down by the little things. If a new hire walks into the building and there's no desk, no laptop, no badge, it's as if the organization doesn't know they're coming. You make a really poor first impression. Equally, if they have a wonderful experience for the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then suddenly it falls off a cliff and they feel abandoned, all that good work is immediately down the drain. So from the individual's perspective, it's all around feeling welcomed and understanding very quickly how you're going to be productive, how you're going to be successful, how you're going to fit in, and why this is such a great choice for you to have made. And then on the next slide, we just touch on another reason why a lot of new hire programs fail, which is this question of accountability. Onboarding often suffers from confusion around ownership. Both HR and individual managers have a role to play. They're not always clear on exactly what that role should be. Many managers don't feel comfortable with the role of onboarder. They believe their job is to manage their team, not necessarily to bring new people into the team. You know, what do you do about that? Well, what you really need to do is give those managers a clear set of guidelines and some tools to make it very, very easy. As in all areas of your business, the people who would do it well anyway will do it well anyway, and the ones that don't need support. So let's make it easy for them and give them the right tools. So that's essentially the background to my first year. I want to spend just a moment talking about what my first year is. We have been in the content creation business for 25 years, but my first year is more than just content. And we've been in the training analysis business for 25 years, and we've been in the technology platform building business for that long as well. But my first year is more than all those three things on an individual basis. It's what happens when you pull those elements together. So my first year is a new hire training and onboarding approach. It's designed specifically to impact employee engagement, retention, and productivity. And that means that when we come into your organization to do the analysis, to set up the My First Year platform, to start adding the content into the experience, we're looking very specifically at your data around retention. When are you losing people? What are they saying in their exit interviews? And productivity. How quickly are people becoming productive? And is there anything we can do to move that needle in the right direction? And I think it's very important in order to understand my first year as an approach, to understand the technology that underpins it. I'm going to say this several times over the next 20 or 30 minutes. It's not a technology solution, it's an onboarding solution that is underpinned by a very clever piece of technology. But Dan, maybe you could just walk us through the platform so people get a sense of not just the technology that underpins my first year, but also the way it drives the program forward.
Sure, thanks, Matt. So first thing I guess to say about the platform is, for anybody thinking of hitting the off button here for the webinar, that this isn't another platform to integrate. System integration tends to give all of our clients a headache. We understand why, and that's exactly why we've developed the My First Year platform. So the first thing to say is we guarantee it integrates with your existing HR systems or LMSs, and let me just talk you through some of the reasons that you might want to consider the platform. Well, first of all, the first thing to say is that if you love your LMS, if it's working fantastically for you, it's providing a clean, easy, engaging experience for your users and managers, if everybody at your organization loves your LMS, you don't need our platform. assuming that you are in the 99.9% section of the business world where LMSs are tending to work less than perfectly, then let me just tell you a little bit more about the platform. So if you're kind of happy with your LMS, but it offers maybe a slightly clunky end user experience, or if you're finding that you're getting a lot of user feedback saying that it's not particularly engaging or it's difficult to find content, then you can use our platform to sit on top of your LMS and create an engaging new hire experience, drive usage by your learners and managers, and really make sure that the learner journey, there's a real clear introduction to your organization over the first week, the first month, the first year. And then finally, for those of you who are either about to give up on your LMS, we're increasingly hearing from our clients that they are happy now to put content out in the cloud or outside of their existing firewalls. Then we can use the platform to host the content for you and circumvent either your LMS, or perhaps provide a kind of middle ground bridging point and host your content for a number of years until perhaps at some time in the future you might think that you have an LMS that you will be eventually moving on to, but at the moment don't yet have. So whether you're very happy, moderately happy, or pretty discontent with your LMS, then we think it's a good fit for the platform. Some of the things the platform does. So first of all, there are calendarized learner journeys. I talked earlier about the idea of drinking from the fire hose. So what we're doing here is making sure there's a real clear progression throughout the first year with clear milestones that give a real kind of satisfying user experience for new hires. And also for the business, provide clear metrics for success and productivity. Throughout the year, there are calendarized nudges for the new hire, for their managers, and for their buddies, and we'll talk more about that over the rest of this presentation. But essentially, those calendarized nudges are there to make life easy for folks. They're ensuring that the right reminders, the right conversations, the right follow-ups are happening at the right time, and that it's made easy, regardless of whether you're the new hire, the manager, or the buddy. Thanks, Neil. We talked earlier about the idea of the platform providing free day one access, so new hires are able to maximize their enthusiasm. I talked earlier about the importance of culture. So this is a great opportunity for your new hires to learn about the organization, to get a real clear sense of what you do and get excited about coming to work and becoming a part of the organization, part of the mission. There's a chance to meet the team. We have a couple of organizations who've used the platform in a way so you can upload perhaps a team message to welcome the new hire and let them know that they're excited about them joining the following week. You're also able to prepare for day one, get through a lot of the administrative pieces, and start to form a relationship with your manager or your buddy in advance of day one. Thanks, Neil. So the new hire gains access to the full platform after they begin work and are in work on day one, and the platform is then configured to your organization. Here in the version we're looking at, you can see that this has been configured for 8 clear steps from day one, the top left here, through to month 4 through 12 on the bottom right. But part of the analysis we do up front would be working out what are the key stages or the key milestones, and we configure the platform to the key steps in your new hire journey. So for example, you might decide that you want 4 buttons, 1 for each quarter. You might tell us, or the analysis might point up that really the key attrition issues are inside your first 3 months, and therefore the buttons might be, day 1, week 1, month 1, month 2, month 3. But the key thing to pull out is this isn't a one-size-fits-all. This is a platform that's going to be reconfigured based on your retention and your productivity points. At each stage of a journey, your new hires are going to get access to all the content they need to be successful. So your onboarding content and your functional training integrate seamlessly into My First Year. I think one of the key call-outs is that very early on, the new hire and the manager are going to meet together and to review the functional curriculum and the role-specific expectations throughout the year. They're going to talk about the fact that during the year, perhaps, for example, at the end of week 1, month 1, day 90, day 180, day 360. There are going to be regular structured checkpoints, skill demonstrations, meetings, conversations for two main reasons. One, to make sure that the new hire is on track in terms of getting to the level of productivity that we would like them to by the right time, but also to make sure that both managers and buddies are providing support and making sure that if the new hire has any pain points, any organizational teething points, that the managers and the buddy are becoming aware of those early enough to set them straight, but then also making the commitment and being nudged by the platform to follow up and make sure that any new hire pain points are addressed. Talked a little bit there about the milestones and the manager, the ease of the experience for the manager. So here you can see that managers can check in on their new hires' progress, be reminded of where their new hires are. The platform is automatically going to record completion, contact usage, sign-offs for the managers to check in on. And then one other piece that we like about it, Neil, thanks, is that it makes it very easy for an organization to gather data on engagement and productivity. So again, here you're seeing a snapshot of one at the end of level reviews where the new hire is letting us know, are we organizationally connected? Did you do a good job of preparing me for day one? Am I on track by the end of the first week to feel that everything is on track for me in terms of my organizational connectivity? My social connectivity here, you can see that just at the bottom of the screen is a second category. You know, have I met everybody in my team? Am I connected to everybody in my ward or on the floor? And do I still start to feel like I'm being integrated successfully to the organization? And then the final piece is the culture, often with these engagement and productivity milestone surveys. Do I feel I'm a good fit for the organization? Is the organization doing a good job of connecting me? And all of that, of course, gives you a chance to measure your engagement and perhaps look at the new hire journeys as you go. And then the final piece to talk about here, Matt, is we talked earlier about the platform making life easy for managers and buddies. Continually throughout the year, the platform is going to be nudging or sending calendarized nudges to managers to set them up for success. So it's continually reminding managers, hey, don't forget, Dan's arriving on Monday. Here's your email template. Send Dan the email welcome. Perhaps follow up and pick up the phone and tell him you're looking forward to him starting on Monday. And that platform is continually ensuring that you are putting in place the right meetings, the right conversations, the right skill demonstrations checklist, so that supporting the new hire for the managers is easy throughout the entire journey.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. That's a really good overview. So I mean, hopefully you're already seeing that while it's underpinned by a technical solution, it's actually a full approach to onboarding a new hire. And I want to just touch on something Dan said, and it's what we consider to be the secret sauce. If you move on to the next slide, Neil. My first year has a technical platform, but actually the real value is in the human interaction between the manager and the new hire, and between the buddy and the new hire. And what the My First Year platform does is it just makes sure that that happens. It makes sure that those conversations happen at the right time, that you get a great first impression, you maintain a buzz through the first 365 days. It's constantly nudging people to have the right conversation at the right time and to attend events and to manage their own progress. Everything is paper-free. And it's all aimed at just preempting those attrition points and pulling forward those productivity points that we're looking for. I won't go into the next slide in detail. It's really just an example of how the program can lay out. One of the things we would look forward to doing with you and your organization is coming in and mapping out what you think makes a fantastic My First Year program. And then we, of course, are able to input our experience and knowledge to make it even better. So let's have a little, let's spend a few minutes on how we actually go about doing this. So driving My First Year and making it happen. Well, the first thing is really the process by which we set up My First Year, and it's very simple. There is a piece of analysis up front, and that analysis is where our learning managers will come into your organization. They'll sit down with some of your HR data. We'll look at the attrition points, the productivity points, and just remember, this is always coming back to those three things: engagement, retention, productivity. Once we've understood where your issues might be around new hire, where you might be losing people, where you might be delaying that time to productivity, where people might be disengaging for the organization, then we put together a new hire track and a manager track that are going to specifically target those issues. Part of that is also looking at content. So we look at what you have, what you might need. Some of the missing pieces might be pieces that we can build, or you might be able to source them elsewhere. But creating a content matrix is an important part of my first year as well. And then finally, there's the technical analysis. Make sure that the platform is going to fit seamlessly in with your HR system and with your LMS, which it should do, and working out how we're going to configure the platform to give you the reporting you need and the tracks that you need. This is a piece of work that we drive. We come on site to do so. Sorry, Neil, just jump back again momentarily, because the second piece is configuring the platform. The second piece is actually taking that analysis and turning it into a working platform that we can set up, stand up in your organization with those tracks visible and actionable, with the manager's view and the buddy's view, with all of your content and maybe our additional content uploaded. And I think Dan mentioned, or at least you would have seen as we walked through some of the grabs, the screen grabs there, you can introduce social media interaction and integration. You can personalize for the user. They can upload their own photographs. They can tell the system who they are, and the system will come to understand who they are. And most importantly, these nudges. So working out, when are we going to nudge the managers? When are we going to nudge the new hires to make sure that the right conversations happen at the right time? And the third piece, and it's almost odd to say this as a company that's been designing training for 25 years, the content piece is almost the least important of the three, because you probably already have some good onboarding content, and we can create more fantastic onboarding content. But the real key is making sure that people take that content in the right frame of mind and move through the system, showing the kind of progress that you want to see. So the analysis will give us that, the platform is the vehicle for delivering it, and the content is how we make sure that people have the right kind of experiences and really understand who you are as a company and where you're going. So once we've set it up, what can you do as an administrator or as an owner of this program? Well, we like to work with organizations over multiple years. We would hope we would be involved in your new hire program, not just in the initial setup, but on an ongoing basis. But on a day-to-day basis, you will have admin rights. You'll be able to set up new joiners, upload new videos, resources, and tools. So essentially, you'll be able to create new tracks and populate them with content. The next slide is really around reporting. Every organization likes to report in a slightly different way, but our dashboards, reports, and scorecards will allow you to look at individuals at organizational level, at manager level, at division level, or perhaps a specific group which is custom just for you. So you might want to know what all the managers in one particular location, how they're getting on, what kind of progress they're making, what issues they're experiencing, and we can run reports across those different areas. And then measuring success. So we mentioned earlier that engagement is a key player in retention and also in productivity. How do you measure engagement? Well, there are various ways, and probably your organization is already measuring engagement, but the My First Year platform can specifically measure that new hire engagement. We're going to ask new hires and managers periodically to feed back to us how they feel they're getting on around the quality of the program, but also just around how they're feeling. Do they feel they're fitting in? Have they made a friend? Do they feel engaged with the company? Do they understand what the company does? Do they understand the end client? So there are those engagement and satisfaction metrics. There are also some essential completion and time-lapse metrics. So who is taking what? How quickly are they getting through the material? Are they passing the assessments? Is everyone on track to be productive at the right time? And those completion milestones are very important. And as Dan mentioned, some of them are automatic. So if the new hire completes a piece of online content, that's an automatic completion milestone. And others are more qualitative. It might be a result of the manager and the new hire sitting down together and agreeing together that the new hire is ready to move on to the next phase. Content. An important part of My First Year. Anyone who's familiar with us will already have a sense of the quality of content that we produce and also the variety. What I will say is that all of the content we recommend to go into a new hire program really focuses around 4 areas. So throughout the first year, you're going to consistently return to these 4 key areas of focus: how we do business, how you as an individual can fit in, where you can find help, and why the organization is unique. So it's really about understanding who the business is, how you can fit into the culture and become part of its success, how you build out your network so you always know who to go to if you have an issue, and essentially the brand, and really understanding the brand and the unique proposition in the marketplace of your organization. We believe that design works, and my first year is successful because we don't have a one-size-fits-all approach to design. The platform can be reskinned to your organization's colors. It will be reconfigured to make sure it's the learner journey that works for you. And anyone who knows our content will know it's different every time. We're always looking to innovate. We're always looking to improve and even to challenge some of the brand guidelines we're given just slightly, so that we can get a really exciting look and feel and content in our offering. In terms of the content, and I'm going to move through this fairly quickly, I think everyone's familiar with good onboarding content probably on this webinar. We love pre-day one content. We don't think there should be too much of it, but we love to give people an opportunity to engage in an interactive, colorful, visual way with the organization. We believe in an innovative welcome on day one. So whether it's a welcome box like this one, which has the feel of opening a new Apple product and is a lovely experience for a new hire, whether it's a celebration event if you have more than one new hire joining at the same time, there are various ways to innovate on day one, but it's making sure that that first impression is something that they'll still remember and talk about. A key piece in our content strategy is what we call a new hire guide. The platform drives activity. The new hire guide really drives reflection and content. So it's a downloadable interactive PDF document. It's media rich. It has audio and video embedded in it, and you can capture information within it. So as you move through the program, it's going to allow you to capture your progress, but it's also going to drive some of your activities. And this is a really, really good way to manage the manager interaction. So on the next slide, we just have a couple of examples of how we manage coaching conversations. If you're a manager, what is going to make managing your new hires really easy and successful for you? Well, it's two things. The first is having a platform that nudges you and tells you when to have the conversation. And the second is to have a simple one-page document that shows you exactly how to have that conversation, how and where to capture the feedback. And if possible, it could be transparent, so the new hire and the manager are looking at the same thing. Two other things worth noting. We are a full production service for online learning, classroom learning. We can build anything that we feel will augment successfully your new hire program. This is an example from KFC. It was a capstone game. It allows them to practice their mastery of the service culture within KFC in a fun and realistic scenario. And finally, around the content compliance, if you decide that compliance is something to be baked into that new hire program, you may well be aware we have a separate compliance library. We very much take the approach, we don't want people drinking from the compliance fire hose. These are short, impactful modules with test down and profiling to allow learners to get through them as quickly, but also as effectively as possible. Okay, so does it work? Well, the answer is yes. So does it work practically? We will guarantee that everything we deliver will work on your existing IT systems. What we mean by that is we will make sure they do at the very, very beginning of the project. We will test the integration before we move forward with the product. There is absolutely no chance that we will get 6 weeks into this program and suddenly have to tell you that it isn't going to work. We guarantee by testing right at the beginning that everything is going to work. It works also because of these three ideas that we keep focus on. So if you are building a new hire program based on what you believe a good new hire program should look like, you'll end up with a fantastic experience, but it won't necessarily change the business. But because we focus on your data for engagement, retention, and productivity, by the end of the first year, you're already going to start to see some impact around those three areas. And remember, those are the areas where the dollars can be very visible. We're also going to have enough data. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Just to jump in there again, because I suspect some of the folks on this webinar are sitting there thinking, yeah, but we have an LMS that we think is already capturing a lot of that information. Well, again, what I hear time and time again is that we do have an LMS. It's very powerful. It's capturing an enormous amount of data. The problem is it's capturing so much data that we're not entirely sure what to do with it or how to kind of burrow down into it to really pull out the information we need. So I think it really is just worth kind of calling out one more time. This is very, very, very focused on three specific areas and capturing information on those three specific areas and regularly looking at the output of those questions and looking at, okay, so how do we fine tune the program to continually be impacting engagement, retention, and productivity? Thanks,
Yeah,
Matt.
no, thank you. And actually, Dan, I think you were going to speak to some of the results we've seen as well.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about this not being one size fits all. So here you have three very different examples of where the My First Year methodology has impacted three very different organizations in different ways. So we rolled out the platform with Ardent Healthcare, who are a healthcare organization with a number of different facilities across, I think, 5 or 6 states in America. And Ardent, like a lot of organizations in the healthcare industry, are trying to solve for the how do we keep our nurses with the organization for longer. So we very much focused the approach of My First Year on nursing retention for Ardent. And I think within about 15 or 16 months of the program rolling out, we have data now that the nurses who've been through the My First Year program are 7%, up 7% more likely to stay than those who previously hadn't been part of the program. We work a lot with Walmart. A lot of the ideas, a lot of the content from the My First Year methodology rolled into their onboarding programs. It mentions there's a $20 million plus annual rise in productivity. Truthfully, I think it's significantly more, but certainly the results of the onboarding methodology within a lot of the Walmart roles within their stores has risen or led to a huge rise in productivity for a lot of those hourly roles. And then the third example here, in talking to KFC, we've been a design and development partner with KFC now for a number of years. They were looking for onboarding that gave a lift to their customer service numbers. So again, we're about 2 years now into rolling out the KFC Service Mastery onboarding program. And as you can see there, the results or the impact in customer service is significant. So 3 different examples there, 3 different types of organizations in 3 different fields with 3 different end goals. And as you can see, significant results for each of them.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think it just highlights, well, it highlights to partly the evolution of our thinking around My First Year, but also it highlights how different each program will be if you start with the organization's data around what's working and what isn't, rather than our idea as a training company about what your new hire program should be. Now, of course, we come with the platform, we come with our approach, and we come with our skills and experience, but the starting point really has to be where are you now and where would you like to be? And that's where you see that very specific uplift in measurable items. So we're very nearly at the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for staying with us so far. I do want to talk a little bit about next steps. So I would say most organizations would look at their new hire program, and if it isn't something that they've updated or revisited very recently, there's always room for improvement. But is it something that's going to happen this year? Is it something that is a real focus for you? Well, if the answer is yes, we would love to be working with you on this. We would love to have an opportunity to at least get into the room, talk about this in a little bit more depth. If this is something you are planning to do in the next 12 months, if it's an approved initiative, if it's something the business is keen to make happen, if there's some, already some kind of clear key movers who are making sure this is going to happen, we would absolutely love the opportunity to be part of that conversation. And if not, then obviously we are a full service organization. We'd love to work with you in a different way. And if there's anybody who you think would benefit from seeing this presentation or from speaking with us about My First Year, that would be another fantastic opportunity for us, is if we were able to speak to other people within your organization. We'd really appreciate that. But for now, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you, Dan, very much also. We will reach out to you with a copy of this deck, and I think the only thing it remains to do is see if any questions have come in, Neil.
Yeah, so we had a question from Mike about the suitability of the program for different types of new hires. So is it specifically focused at hourly associates? Is it senior level hires, experienced hires? You might touch on some of that, Matt.
Yeah, so I'll begin, and Dan may want to throw in something as well. So the answer is it would work with any type of onboarding, but I do think there are differences. So I think if you wanted to cut a different track for hourly positions, for example, versus corporate positions, that might be a good way to go. I think it's about, again, it all comes back to understanding exactly what your needs are as a business and being able to configure the platform and the approach around those needs. So if you have 2 or 3 very distinct audiences, it might be that we have 2 or 3 flavors of the platform in order to cater for those audiences. But if you look at the examples we just shared, I mean, Walmart was really around that hourly workforce, and then as was the KFC. But when you look at the Ardent, and in fact some of the Walmart, you're moving up into more senior positions, more corporate positions. So it works across the board. Dan?
Matt, yeah, I'm an enormous soccer nut, so I'm a huge Manchester United fan, and I'm really interested in Sir Alex Ferguson, his leadership abilities. He was the manager for 27 years at Man U, and I think has recently been one of the Harvard Business School's guest leadership speakers for the last 2 or 3 years. But something that he used to say, and it strikes a chord with me, we also work with Walmart, and even now, years on, you hear folks talk about Sam Walton in revered terms, or Steve Jobs at Apple. But I think the key thing is that the magic of, or one of the many really powerful things about the platform and the methodology is that it ensures that every single employee in your organization, whether it be the person who answers the phone, whether it be the person that stands at the door, whether it be one of your officers joining the company, is that everybody gets a consistent welcome to your organization. Everybody hears consistent messages about culture, about mission, about vision, about values. So I think that within the tracks, they can be tailored to give different functional experiences or have different productivity goals. But I think one of the powerful things about the platform is that really it should be used by everybody in your organization to really get them excited about the organization they've joined and give clarity about what it is the organization is and where they hope to go in the years to come.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Were there any other questions there, Neil?
No, that was it. There was a couple that we can follow up with directly afterwards, but I think for now, I think we're good.
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate you giving us your time. You will hear from us with a copy of this deck. Please do check out the video on the website, and we look forward to speaking to you about my first year in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.